5 athletes from Pool A have punched their ticket to the semifinals.
One more up driver into the back, into this, I'll call it patented. I have a 2 hits on the backside.
Today, 10 athletes from Pool B have waited over a year for their opportunity.
2020 was a tough year for most people.
I was able to do a little bit of training, just kind of keep the skill set tuned in. If it's just a good, solid run, you'll make the next round.
Ready to go with some Pool B action. STIHL Timbersports 2021 U.S. Qualifiers. Tommy Sanders here with Kevin Holtz. And Kevin, we got 10, as we always have, in each one of our 4 pools. Only 5 will make it to the goal, and that's the U.S. Championships. Who are you looking at in Pool B?
Well, it'd be foolish not to look at Matt Koger, 6-time STIHL Timbersports champion. 6. Looking for number 7. If he doesn't end up at or near the top of this pool, the wheels must have totally fallen off the cart. But there's some other tough competitors too. Mike Forrester joins us from the West Coast. He is a grizzly, seasoned veteran competitor, a real nice guy, I might add too. But don't turn your back on him for a second. He'll be grabbing points all over the place. And I really like Logan Scarborough. I got to watch him come through the college ranks several years ago. He has always impressed me as a calm, cool, collected competitor. Logan, I think, will do very well in this pool as well.
Exciting competition, a few wrinkles this time around. This is elimination or a knockout round right out of the box, the first 3 disciplines, and we lose 2 of our 10. And remember, only 5 will make it out at the end of it all. So here we go. Let's get right to it.
In round 1, our 10 competitors will compete in 3 events: the underhand, the stock saw, and the standing block. Then only our top 8 advance after that round into round 2. In this round, they'll compete in the single buck and the springboard. The 6 athletes with the most points after round 2 advance to the final round. The remaining field of 6 survivors will compete in the hot zone. This unpredictable event will be the final competition to decide who moves on to the semifinal round, which certainly ratchets up the stress of making 3 complete and clean cuts within the allowed distance. So let's get started on this next segment of our journey to find the U.S. champion for 2021.
3, 2, 1, go!
If you've followed STIHL Timbersports through the years, you think of a heat as 2 competitors on the same stage in the same town, chopping and sawing against one another. Well, of course, everyone knows what's happened in the last couple of years. Of course, lots of health concerns, and it was decided that this time around we would do virtual matchups in our pool competition. So from 4 different locations around the country, Centralia, Washington, Hayward, Wisconsin, Cherry Valley, New York, and Mount Gilead, North Carolina, we have matchups that can be cross-country, and that's what you're seeing, the result of that today. That's the way we're doing our heats.
For some of these competitors, this virtual format may play to their advantage. It's calm, it's quiet, it seems more like a training environment than anything. On the other hand, there's other competitors that feed off that crowd noise. They want to know how the competitor right next to them is doing. They want to go back to the competitor area and look at the point sheets and see what they need to do. Not this year. 2021, step to the block, make your best possible cut.
Let's kick off our first discipline of round 1 with the underhand. Let's kick it off with the underhand chop, heat number 1, the 3rd generation lumberjack competitor, and veteran Mike Forrester up against the former college national champion, Will Robert.
Will Roberts showing a bit of a slow swing speed, but he's putting in some really dedicated, powerful blows. 10 hits and he's around. Forrester around the same pace. Forrester really, I think, venting some frustration on this block. Roberts off around the 26-second mark. Forrester around 28 seconds, but you look at the hit count compared to the times, both of these guys just thumping on these logs.
There's your official times there. Will Roberts takes that one, 26.19. Mike Forrester 2 seconds behind, a little under that, 28.04.
Yeah, it took me a few hits to really kind of get back in the swing of things. First event of the day, a little bit jittery. Backside went pretty well. Front side was pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Next heat, 2 North Carolina axemen squaring off right here. Mike Slingerland, the veteran, going up against Logan Scarborough.
3, 2, 1, go!
guys off to a solid, clean start. I like the chips I can see falling there below the block. Nice, big polygon size or shaped chips. Mike Slingerland showing why he's the veteran competitor. Very clean looking cut. Logan lost his way a little bit. He's looking to regroup. Slingerland slowing down here at the end of this chop. Slingerland grabbing his back of his leg as well. He's stretching out. I think I heard him say something popped, which is never a good indication. Let's go back and watch this cut from Mike Slingerland as he works his way into the backside of this block. Trouble starts right about the time he goes to put in the big driving blows. You can see him, he kind of shuffled his feet there a little bit, adjusted his position, and then yells a little bit. Steps away, hold the back of his knee, lower part of his hamstring.
We'll keep our eye on that. We hope that's not a serious injury for Mike Slingerland. He did get the best time in the heat of 26.17 versus Logan Scarborough 29.63. Ready to go now. Time to beat 26.19 from Will Roberts. This heat is Zach Brous on the left versus Derek Knudsen.
1, go!
You see the hit count rolling away at the bottom. Our underhand cutters are typically around 1 hit or 1 swing per second. A slight hang up, even as minor as it was there from Knudsen on the end of the front face there, could really spell disaster. He draws a big slab on the backside though, and steps in his chop a little bit. Zach Brous staying wide, gives him that fresh, clean air to drive through into. Zach Brous, you look at that, putting in 23 hits in about 23 seconds. Knudsen though, 20 hits in like 24 seconds. Didn't quite have the swing speed going today.
Derek Knudsen's time 24.33. Brous takes over the lead with a 23.20.
It was a really good cut. The wood's not super great, but it's pretty good. Cut the front just how I wanted it, went to the back, put in 2 extra hits I didn't need, but block came off great, and I think I had a pretty good time on it.
Next heat, Grant Foreman, the engineer from Ohio on the left, Chaz Haas on the right.
3, 2, 1, go!
Both these guys with good clean cuts so far. I like the piles of chips that I'm seeing stack up on the backside. Big slabs of wood. Both these guys opening great backsides. Grant Foreman just a little bit of twist to that block, but he's taking it apart nicely. Haas on the right, very clean, straight grain. There they go, about 1 hit separating them, exactly 1 hit separating them. Just a little bit quicker swing speed from Foreman. Well, the name of the game in timber sports is clean cut is a fast cut. You want to have a strategic disassembly of these blocks, and both of these guys do a fine job of that. Notice the lines, the faces of these blocks as they're cutting in. There are no missed hits. Everything's going right where it needs to go. Just one guy does it a little faster than the other.
Chaz Haas time 22.33, and Grant Foreman taking over the lead with a 21.71. Here we go, final heat of the underhand, and our first look at the 6-time Timber Sports champion, national champion, Matt Coger on the left, going up against Calvin Willard.
Calvin Willard drew a tough matchup here. Benefit is, though, being virtual, Calvin Willard is nowhere near. They are halfway across the country from each other. Matt Coger, look at that axe just disappear into that block, right to the maker's mark, right to the eye, cleanly driven off. A great, clean, classic cut from our 6-time Timber Sports champion, Matt Coger. One last look at Matt Coger. Watch how cleanly this block comes apart. That axe is sliding down the face of that chop, chasing in the last curve. Absolute perfect efficiency.
Calvin Willard at 21.41 and taking it all. Matt Coger wins the underhand with a 16.46.
Pretty good. That was a pretty decent cut to start the day off, and good bit of wood. So just next event now, and just look forward to seeing how everything lays out.
And that performance is our John Deere power play. Nothing runs like a deer.
One last look at Matt Coger. Watch how cleanly this block comes apart. That axe is sliding down the face of that chop, chasing in the last curve. Absolute perfect efficiency.
One discipline down in our first elimination round, and remember, the bottom 2 on the leaderboard will be eliminated after this first knockout round. Coming up, side-by-side chainsaw racing is next, the stock saw. STIHL Timber Sports is sponsored by STIHL, maker of a full line of gasoline and battery-powered handheld outdoor power equipment. Find yours at stihlusa.com. By the Duluth Trading Company, the official workwear of STIHL Timber Sports. By Ace Hardware. Ace is the helpful place. And by John Deere. Nothing runs like a deer. Hayward, Wisconsin, one of the 4 locations hosting our first ever virtual competition. We have athletes from around the country competing to be one of the 20 competitors who will move on to the 2021 STIHL Timber Sports U.S. Championship semifinals. Today, 10 competitors from Pool B compete in 3 rounds of competition. We are in the middle of round 1 with 1 discipline down. After round 1, the field will be cut to 8 competitors with the most points. Now, we move into our second of 3 disciplines in round 1, the stock saw. To tell us more about this event, here's Dave Jewett with our discipline review.
Stock saw, 2 competitors going head-to-head with identically tuned MS661 chainsaws. After a 15-second warm-up, all 8 fingers must be crossing that line. On go, with speed, they retrieve the saw. With precision, they enter the saw into the wood, listening to the RPMs, feeling the saw cutting through the wood, severing that first clean disc. Then, the perfect transition, and again, with precision, entering the log for the upcut. Hopefully seeing 2 complete discs on the ground, and of course, this 4-inch line remaining for a leading cut.
All right, let's go with the stock saw now. It's going to be the New Yorker, Will Roberts, versus Vermont's Calvin Willard.
So we're running equally matched wood, equally matched saws, and our operators are becoming more equally matched as the years go on. So we work towards that perfect cut. I was about to say both these guys are exceptional operators, but trouble for Will Roberts on your left. Just came up and caught the top of the block. That was the window of opportunity Calvin Willard needed to get past him. Wow, look at Roberts wheel him back in. We'll go back and take a look at this start from Will Roberts. Watches the saw comes up to the top of the block. He doesn't quite clear it. He's got to kind of double clutch it a little bit. Does a great job making up for it though in the block. Calvin had a pretty good head start on him, and Will just reels him in.
Didn't quite catch him. Cal Willard with a 12.20 to take that heat. Will Roberts 12.32.
Yeah, I think it went pretty well. Wood exceptionally soft. It's kind of sticky, heavy air today, so not a lot of oxygen for the saws, I don't think. But you got to be kind of easy on the saws. But if you're easy on them, I think they'll cut pretty decent.
Next heat of the stock saw going to be the veteran Mike Slingerland versus the relative newbie Grant Foreman.
Of course, Mike Slingerland after the underhand chop was clutching that right leg, hamstring, back of the knee, not really sure exactly what was going on. This is probably, I shouldn't even say probably, this is definitely the lowest impact discipline that he's going to run into the rest of the day. And he's taking advantage of it. Very quick and clean to the wood. Grant Foreman, though, not going to wait around for him. Oh, Foreman stuffs up the bottom of the upcut. Slingerland gets the advantage. Wow.
Oh, look at that 1/100th of a second.
Trouble back and forth between these 2 cutters for Grant Foreman. It was on this upcut right about there. Yep, there it is. You see the discharge stop, the chain slowed or stopped, just a little too much pressure, still manages to pull out a win just by the skin of his teeth.
And officially it's going to be Foreman with a 12.05. Mike Slingerland 12.06.
Yeah, I lifted, I came down through the cut really nice. I got through and I got into the upcut and I thought, wow, I've got extra wood. I can really rip it on it, and then it just dogged in the cut. Thankfully, I was able to recover pretty quickly and get 2 on the ground, and that's the name of the game on the stock saw. On to the next event.
Time to beat, obviously, the 12.05 Grant Foreman. Next heat coming up, the 3rd generation lumberjack sports competitor Mike Forrester going up against Chaz Haas.
All other factors equal, I got to give advantage Forrester. This is one of those disciplines where nerves can really play up. Both these guys very clean to the block. Haas very fast through the block as well. Advantage Forrester at the switch. Big shower of chips from both these guys. And Mike Forrester is going to run away with this one handily. Big claps from Mike Forrester. Good job, buddy. Well, every year with the stock saw, it is a refinement, a fine-tuning, a finessing. Therefore, advantage to the veteran competitors, I say. Mike Forrester shows that refinement, a 10.55.
10.55, easily taking over the lead does Mike Forrester. Chaz Haas 12.44.
No, it was a good cut. I couldn't be any happier. It's a good start. Got to the wood quick, made a great exchange, stayed within my 4 inches. Got that underhand out of the way, and that one went really nice. I'm real tickled with that cut.
We have 2 heats remaining. Let's get it started with Logan Scarborough and our 6-time national champion, Matt Coker. Well, Forrester's 10.55, pretty strong. That is the time to beat.
Both of these guys very quick to the block, pushing the limits with these saws. You can see the discharge on that down cut. The sawdust, the chips, I should say, are starting to clot up as they're leaving that clutch housing. That means we're at full capacity with their saws. There is nothing left to give. Logan Scarborough, a tough go in the underhand, an uncharacteristic performance for him. I know he was disappointed in that run. Got to be happy with this run, though. 11.13. Puts him near the top of the heat in the stock saw.
It was better. It could always been better. There's always ways you can critique yourself. Stock saw is one that I enjoy, and it's a way you can really rack up points. Even not the best axeman or best sawyer can still be very good at something non-manual like this, as far as I'm concerned.
Great time for Logan Scarborough, 11.13, only good enough for second place so far, though. Matt Coger at 11.66. Final heat of the stock saw here, the time to beat Mike Forrester. Strong time, 10.55. It's going to be Derek Knutson on the left going up against Zach Browse.
3, 2, 1, go!
Oh, trouble on stand number 2 for Zach Browse as he went down for the saw. I didn't see if he missed the grip or got the chain break, but there was definitely some bobble happening there. He is reeling it back in, though. Really a close finish between he and Darren Knutson. Doesn't seem like much, but you see that double touch from Zach Browse on the right-hand side. Comes down and just doesn't really grab, but touches that chain break, has to reposition his hands. Again, we're moving ever closer to that perfect cut, and that is an imperfection that costs valuable time.
Knutson's going to get it with a time of 11.68. Browse 11.99, which means Mike Forrester going to be your stock saw champ. 2/3 of the way through our first round of competition of Pool B. We've got 4 athletes fighting for their competition life. Scarborough, Slingerland, Haas, and Will Roberts have 1 event remaining to make up ground to avoid elimination. Athletes get their axes ready for the standing block next on STIHL Timbersports. But first, these athletes dedicate immense hours to training for these events, but many still find time to serve their community. Let's find out in the Ace Hardware Helpful Profile.
I own my own business. I own my own arborist and logging company, and so I do give back to the community a lot. Like for example, this past year I got rid of a big dead sugar maple in the middle of town and donated a brand new Christmas tree for the town. So we usually get a tree every year, a spruce tree donated, and they put it in. It's temporary. In the past couple of years, it's been kind of hard to get one, and it's blowed over in the wind on Christmas Eve this year. So I went through and I said, hey, presented to the board, can I buy a tree and plant it permanently for years to come? So I like doing stuff like that, giving back to a community that's given a lot to me to help me with my sport. I have my own lumberjack show right in Bedford, Pennsylvania, and a lot of those people sponsor and help out, so I like to give back to them as much as I can.
STIHL Timbersports Pool B action. We begin the final discipline of round 1, and the goal for these athletes is survive and move on to the next round. To do that, be in the top 8 in overall points after this round. Right now, Roberts, Haas, Scarborough, and Mike Slingerland all have work to do in our next discipline. To tell us more, here's Dave Jewett in our Duluth Trading Company Discipline Review.
Athlete versus tree. Their goal, sever a 12-inch log. This is a standing block. The standing block mimics felling a tree with a racing axe as fast as possible. When the gun fires, you have to chop halfway through the log. In order to do that, know the log, be familiar with your equipment. The best athletes will put 10 to 12 hits in the front. The elite athlete will put 6 to 7 hits in the front. The turn is a 4-step motion with speed, minding the chips on the ground which you've removed. Run to the back side with no hesitation. Open up the back with confidence, making a split decision. Do I take another chip for safety, or do I have the confidence to drive this log off?
Here we go with our third and final discipline of round 1. 2 competitors will be eliminated after this discipline. That means guys like Scarborough, Haas, and Roberts, along with Mike Slingerland, who suffered an injury in the underhand, are in danger of being eliminated.
When I tried some practice swings for the stand-up block, it kept giving out on me. I wouldn't support my weight, so we'll see.
Well, you heard that. Mike Slingerland keen to go despite whatever's bedeviling him right now, and he needs to do well. Ditto for his opponent here, Chaz Haas. Both of them down in the points.
Yeah, not the discipline for a bum right leg. You can just see from this vantage point and this stance, that right leg is your twisting, torsioning, horsepower leg back there. He is losing a ton of energy from that back leg, still posting an okay chop, but you know he's not going to be happy. You see there a slow motion hobble around the backside as Haas is well into the backside and looking to drive that off. There it is. Mike's going to post a time. He is the professor. He's going to cut this thing cleanly, just not fast and not a ton of power. There it is. Not the time that Mike wanted, but he'll get a time.
The time for Mike Slingerland officially a 34.67. Pretty good time for Chaz Haas, 23.29. Okay, heat 2 of the standing block should be a pretty good matchup between Derek Knutson and Logan Scarborough.
Big opening drives from Derek Knutson. Well done. That block is just falling apart. Logan Scarborough around to the backside already. He is also drawing big slabs. Both these guys putting up some pretty trophy chops. The times are not reflecting it, but they are putting in big swings. Logan driving in low. He drives the stump. You can see that block splitting, as is Derek. He's got a little ugly there towards the end. Let's watch the end of this cut from Logan Scarborough. You can see he's driving down into the stump of the log, and there that very last axe blow. Look at the angle and look at the direction. It should be going through into fresh air on the far side of the log, but instead it's going down into the stump.
Could have been better. Yeah, definitely it's a good piece of wood. Didn't put the drivers in heavy enough on the front side, and that cost me 4 or 5 hits on the back.
Time of 21.90, good enough for Logan Scarborough to take over the lead, 26.01 for Knutson. Ready to go now with Will Roberts and Mike Forrester. Time to beat Logan Scarborough, 21.90.
Mike Forrester could probably grab this standing block and just twist the top off, but in this case, he's going to use an axe. One hit got away from him on the downside. That pinched him off a little bit. He should have no problem driving that wood. Will Roberts is well through the halfway part of this block. He's going to take a couple of blows here on the near side to get that top twisting. There it twists, and it's off, but it was Mike Forrester ripping through that piece of white pine. Let's talk exit strategy specifically for Will Roberts. You watch him, he's going to drive near, right there, block opens up. He was probably hoping the whole thing was going to twist off, but you drive near, lets the head of that block just twist open a little bit, exposes those far fibers, lets you slice right through them.
20.18, the official time for Mike Forrester. He is going to take over the lead in the standing block. Will Roberts' time, 21.41.
It went according to plan. The only thing that didn't quite go as well is it's hard to get going, you know, being that long off, it's hard to get that fluidness going, and that's kind of where I'm at. It was just too deliberate, not a lot of fluidity. The front, missed a couple hits in the front just because I haven't been racing. Back come off just perfect. So, I mean, other than a few sticks, which are mainly because I'm just rusty.
Halfway through our final discipline, who will survive and who will be eliminated? We'll find out next when we wrap Pool B, Round 1. of STIHL Timbersports. STIHL Timbersports is sponsored by STIHL, maker of a full line of gasoline and battery-powered handheld outdoor power equipment. Find yours at stihlusa.com. By the Duluth Trading Company, the official workwear of STIHL Timbersports. By Ace Hardware. Ace is the helpful place. And by John Deere. Nothing runs like a deer. STIHL Timbersports Pool B qualifier continues. 10 athletes fighting for 5 spots to the semifinals. And we're about to find out who will move on and who will move out as the standing block continues. So Robert's currently in second place with that time, but he's going to have to stand by and watch. He's going to have to get some help from these remaining 4 choppers in the last 2 heats. And boy, these are some strong guys here. Let's watch this next one with Calvin Willard and Grant Foreman.
Grant has really just been absolutely impressive. We haven't had a lot of experience watching this man cut, and he hasn't had a lot of experience cutting, but it's not letting him slow down. Calvin Willard, we've been watching him for quite a few years, a really sharp standing block cutter, really brings that axe from way back behind him. There he is, he's gonna go into his driving, but Grant is right there with him. Both these guys run a pretty classic 8-and-8 pattern. 8 hits in the front, 8 hits in the back, gets the job done. Calvin just gets it done just a 1/10 of a second faster.
Well, it should have come probably 1 or 2 hits sooner. I got a little sloppy with my angles and didn't finish my hit. But so yeah, I should have come off a little quicker. But I'm happy with how it went.
Another good chop. Really pleased with that one. Took 8 in the front, 8 in the back. About as good as I can chop that log. Maybe I could have get 1 less hit, but I'll take it.
Calvin Willard going to get it with an 18.63, 18.74 for Grant Foreman. Final heat of the standing block in our virtual competition here. Matt Koger cutting from Mount Gilead, North Carolina. Zach Brous from Cherry Valley, New York.
6-time champion Matt Koger laying into this standing block chop. Looks like he's going to stab 8 into the front of it, and he is around. Zach severing the top of that block off with his upward drivers. Matt Koger,
wow.
Was that 5 in the back? Unbelievable. Barely cleared any chips out of the back of that block and just drove an obscene amount of wood through the middle.
Well, takes this one by a wide margin, 14.39. Matt Koger, the top time in the standing block. Zach Brous, official time, 19.52.
That was just a good run. That was a good log. Just putting the hits in. I knew I could probably get by with a little bit there and just didn't quite reach that far wood enough. That's why I stuck at the last hit and had to score. Have a nice little tap hit there in the last. But other than that, no, it was good just to have a good go at it and just demolish a bunch of wood. There's just a few things to clean up on for the next rounds, but just gotta give it the best you can and just go for the goal, I guess.
There it is, the final tally from round 1, and we say goodbye to Will Roberts and Mike Slingerland. Slingerland suffered the leg injury in the first event, and even though he forged on, he was unable to move on to the next round. Pool B continues as the points increase, and so will the pressure. In knockout rounds 2 and 3 next time on STIHL Timbersports.